And at the end of the day, I think that a lot of development is similar. A lot of these tenants have the same building and the same style and the same properties. And it's not as though we're reinventing the wheel when it comes to development. We're not doing anything that's earth shattering, but I think what we are good at is the relationship part of things. And I think that the main factor of relationships is transparency. And
I
so
see.
it's not as though no project's too small, no project's too big. We're just going to look at all options and at bats, I think.
Welcome, everyone, to Property Pulse. This is a podcast put on by Swarmalytics. Today, we've got Grant Barrett, and he is with Quattro Development. You're in 30 different states. You're doing projects for all sorts of different companies and so forth. How do you avoid getting eaten up by the logistics of, okay, I've got a dental establishment in Maine, and the next thing is in upstate New York or in Virginia or whatever? You can't possibly have teams literally all over the country, can you?
Good question. And it's something that took some time to specialize. I think that Mike and Rob, who are the founders, they did a great job of, I think, kind of reworking how development goes, at least how people view development, where a lot of shops go for the best real estate first. And then they try and find the tenants to essentially place within the dirt or the buildings that they find. Our approach is different in the sense that we realize that the tenants really are the most valuable part of the equation. And
Yes.
a building is a building, but if there's nobody operating within it, then there's truly no value brought to communities or just economy in general. The way we've gone about it is trying to partner with tenants, tenant brokers, and just the entire industry of that, and then ask them essentially, where can we help you within this country? And when it comes to, I'm on the acquisition side. So when it comes to the actual sites, the country is really there's 50 different states. So I'll dumb it down to that. There's 50 different puzzles to find. And we just essentially have that puzzle piece we're trying to fit. And most of the zoning within these tertiary markets is essentially where we do our work, are all similar, where it's going to be the drive-throughs are all similar. They kind of all follow the Walmarts and the Targets of the world. And you just have to then go find the Walmarts, the Targets, the main anchors, and then you can follow afterwards. And the retail stretch is the retail
Yep.
stretch.
Yep.
When it comes to the construction side of things, we have a great in-house group of Brett, who's our director of construction. He's been there 16 years at this point. And he's been in the industry for much longer than that. And they bid all of the projects out. And so a lot of times when we do these rollouts, it's either a state focused or a region focused. And so we try to then partner with general contractors to say, okay, we have, let's call it 10 stores that we're attempting to open. How can we best plan this so that it's minimal points of contact? And essentially everyone has their own accounts at that point.
Got it. How much of the location is being dictated by the client?
I think that, a lot. A lot of people follow the leader because of the demographics at those large boxes. They do a lot of the research to understand where they want to go in their entitlement process. And the research that's done makes sense. And then there's a lot of programs out there that you can track how well those boxes actually do. And then you can say, okay, well, this Home Depot or Whole Foods or Target or Walmart, they're in the top 50th percentile of the nation of all their existing units. And so I know that there's a strong pull here for whoever the following tenant is going to be.
Is that data commercially available?
The data source that we use is Placer AI is the company.
Okay.
Not sure how long they've been around at this point, but we've been using them for 4+ years, and it's really user friendly. You put an address in, and then any pretty much data you would want to see is kind of there. So I would certainly look into that. It's a
That's
cool
interesting. We will look into that. By the way, do you use, maybe Placer provides it, traffic counts?
That's in Placer, and then the other only place that I'm aware of it, that at least we use without subscriptions, is just the DOT websites. They're limited for the same reason that your platform provides value, in the sense that, one, they're outdated. Sometimes it'll be all the way to 2017 when the traffic was counted. And then the other thing is there like these massive distances between the count spots, and so you
Yes.
can't necessarily see when traffic is picked up through certain intersections, or if you are using or if you're going with a tenant that's more of a destination focused versus wanting a billboard site.
Yes.
Then those secondary roads essentially just knowing the traffic there is building your sale to that. But I'm going to go back then with the previous question of the tenant picking the site. They know the markets they want to be in, but then it's our job to uncover all of the availability. And
Yes.
so it's not as though we just go and say, okay, we know Doug owns this property. That's the one property we're going to call. It's we're going to call Doug, Doug's neighbor, their neighbor, and continuing down the line, provide them with these are all the options.
Uh-huh.
Now you can make the decision, and this is a partnership. We're not trying to, we'll give you the information, but not
Do
make
you ever have to bolt together properties?
right. That's something that we certainly do. Most of our projects are under 5 acres.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's the same problem we run into where there's only one stretch that you can go on for retail and you need an acre, but there's parcels that are a half acre, 3/4 of an acre. And so you
Yep.
then combine those two. I think
Yep.
the biggest challenge with that is not all property owners that are neighbors are friendly to one another. Yeah. So it's just trying to get timelines together, negotiate at the same time, and then just push it forward at the same time.
And putting those pieces together, is that something that you have to do manually? I'm just thinking about teeing up, well, we need 5 acres. He's got 3, he's got 2. If we put these together, now you send somebody out to negotiate or something.
That's certainly what we're doing. I mean, we're looking at tax parcels and taking the total acreage per square foot and then just doing simple math of does this get us to our minimum at this point? Okay, we need to chase X, Y, and Z.
Got it.
And it's just, I mean, there's a lot of data that we put into our backbone is there's so much there, but it originally started on pen and paper binders that are still in our office actually. And then it transitioned over to Google Sheets. And so now it's just a bunch of inputs on Google Sheets and trying to keep track is sometimes challenging, but we've since started mapping everything so that you can easily reference individual markets. If we're
Hmm.
doing a nationwide expansion for you, you can see all of the entire United States, and then you can zoom in on the individual markets that you have interest.
So you mentioned Google spreadsheets and such. Are there other tools that you use?
I think the most, I don't, I think that AI, I also struggle on what that actually means. So Placer AI, I assume is AI, but they don't necessarily push it as this is artificial intelligence. It's more of a data source, which is an
Yes.
interesting sale in my opinion. But another one that's really interesting is called TestFit. And that program pulls zoning code to my knowledge. And then you can basically the founder or one of the first sales people at that company was working at one of the major real estate owners, and his entire job was site planning. And so moving the building, you have to change all the parking spaces, and there's hundreds of parking spaces that you need to change, and it's a very tedious task.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm understanding is that this is an assistant to our jobs. It's not necessarily taking jobs. And I think the best, I don't know if I'll say piece of advice, but kind of snippet I've heard about AI is AI is not going to take jobs, but people that are using AI as a tool will take your jobs.
Right.
So then
Gives them a competitive advantage.
right, exactly. And so then test fit will essentially, you can just put your building on it and then drag it throughout the parcel and it'll automatically calculate where the parking spaces need to be.
Oh, that's cool.
That one's cool. It's very, it has a very specific approach to, or very specific solution it's trying to solve essentially.
Yes.
But then there's a lot of companies out there that are doing like the dialing and trying to get people's numbers and voice AI and all of that. And I just think that this industry is too much relationship focused that if you have, for a lack of better terms, a robocaller, that's not really starting that relationship well, in my opinion. I
Correct.
understand pulling data, but I still think that there needs to be a human making those calls.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, I tell my team it's about people. Whatever we're doing, it's about people. We are selling to people. We are delivering to people. They are, whoever our client is, has to deal with people. It's all about people. We can have the coolest algorithms and the most massive data, but in the end, we've got to package things so that a person can quickly understand what we're communicating and take action on it. I notice, and this speaks well of you, that you tend to have sort of repeat clients.
Mhm.
You must have built 20 Montessori schools, I think, right? You have a dental practice that keeps coming back to you and so forth. I know this isn't your specialty, but how do you get that initial dental practice kind of thing and become the preferred vendor?
Yep. It's a good question. At the end of the day, I think that a lot of development is similar. A lot of these tenants have the same building and the same style and the same properties. And it's not as though we're reinventing the wheel when it comes to development. We're not doing anything that's earth shattering, but I think what we are good at is the relationship part of things. And I think that the main factor of relationships is transparency. And so we make sure that we open our books up to people and say, look, this is the cost of doing business. We are making this so that we're doing this as a percentage of our overall costs. And then on top of that, it's not that we're just building you a building, but we're also providing you with all of the available options within a market, and we're just allowing the tenant to make decisions. I think that a lot of people will close their books, they'll put in fees, they'll put in all of these unnecessary numbers that some may never even know what they are. But we're able to transparently say, hey, this is exactly what the project's going to be, and we can show you the options within the markets. And then we also don't specialize in just a Houston market. We'll go to those 30 different states. And
Yep.
so when someone's like, I have this really, really small project in the middle of New Mexico. I don't know if it's worth your time. We say it absolutely is. Let's take a look at it. And so
Okay.
it's not as though no project's too small, no project's too big. We're just going to look at all options and at bats, I think, is what
Just
it.
thinking out loud, which
Yeah.
is what I do on these podcasts, is there an opportunity to use that data source that you mentioned and sort of rank all of the people all of the organizations that are building out there and rank them based upon how much their properties that they're building look like a potential client?
I think that as of now, I see where you're going, and that makes sense. I think as of now, it's a lot of personal tracking of seeing who's on the market, who's building. I think that our business model is that as of right now, it might be changing in the future, but our business model right now is that we sell all of our assets. And so we'll build it, we'll create value, we'll add value, and then we'll sell it off. And
Really? Is that selling it off? Is that I was under the impression that, again, the dental chain or whatever would hire you to build it and then they'd take ownership. Is there a financing wing or something that gets involved where a bank needs to get involved or something?
so banks are involved on the construction loans and the acquisition loans. And then we typically look for financing that allows us to not have prepayment penalties so that we can, if, we have to look after our capital gains tax and everything along those lines. But
Sure.
sometimes, if the market's hot, we'll take advantage of proper offers, I guess.
Okay. Cool.
The dental clinics and the Montessoris, they have their prototypes. We build the prototypes out for them, but then they're a tenant of that space. And so they have
Okay.
that 15-year lease, and say at the end of 15 years they want to stay there, then they can renew their lease. If not, then you have a building that's typically 3,500 square feet, 4,000 square feet, and typically on really strong retail nodes, that another new active tenant, whether it's a new dental clinic or a new medical clinic or even a fast food restaurant, can take those buildings over. And
I
so
got it.
it's
So if I
de-risk it.
if I'm tracking here, in some cases you folks just retain ownership.
Small cases, but yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and that's of the real estate and the building itself, but of the brands, those are, I'll consider them our partners to these projects. They're not
Uh-huh.
actually Quattro's arm. But to get back to the original question, was whether or not I the tracking of like tenants, think that it's really just tracking who is on market and what tenants are expanding the most. And so I don't know if there's necessarily these big tenant reports that track all the data. A lot of the public companies put out their like blasts of, we expect to have 35 units coming this year, 35 units in 2026, and continue along those lines. But at least from my experience, I have to seek those. And so I think that if there is some sort of report that aggregates all of that, I think that that is certainly a value there.
Okay, cool. What do you find the most manual slash frustrating part of your job?
I would say contact data, which a lot of these companies are trying to solve, but many of these companies are taking it, in my opinion, just too far because give you the contact information and then they have their AI call that number to confirm it. And as I was saying earlier, that's removing the relationship from it, and
Yep.
that's making it a lot more transactional. I think the other thing that's manual is finding the real estate itself, but to me, I like doing that. Like it's fun to either get in the car and drive the markets. We typically do that is when we get a new market, we'll actually get into the car, drive them, see how it interacts, kind of immerse ourselves within those communities to understand
Uh-huh.
why Chipotle or Aspen Dental or whoever it may be wants to be there and then
Uh-huh.
kind of understand the traffic flows and how it trades in those markets. But I mean, Google Maps has really changed the name of the game here, at least in retail development, where
Yeah.
you get the satellite image that's almost completely up to date, and then Street View. I mean, I remember Mike and Rob, they were talking about when they found out Street View was an implementation of Google Maps, it just blew their mind and said that everything changed after that, which I
Good.
feel is the kind of what we're getting into right now with there's going to be a few really, really great companies within this AI transformation. There's going to be a ton that don't work well, but I think the ones that are successful in listening to, where opportunities are and
Yeah.
understanding rather than just trying to be involve your tech on an industry that isn't, I don't know, I feel as though commercial real estate is people know about it, they know what it is, but if you're not really immersed in it, it's sometimes challenging to understand the nature of it.
And as you've mentioned a couple of times, again, it's about the people. It's
Exactly.
about this guy doesn't like that guy. And they've been fighting over who's shoveling the snow or something like that, for years and years. And you've got to incorporate that in. And a really good salesman or buyer or whatever may be able to play that one against another or something to make the deal happen. But you've got to understand the dynamics of the people.
Absolutely. You have to hear each person's story and the human element. Like it really is the human element of why don't you guys get along? Okay, well, I'm not your neighbor. I'm just trying to facilitate this. And so it's almost the intermediary, sometimes a therapist, sometimes other things. And as long as you're able to listen and understand, deals can get put together.
Good. Is there an opportunity? You mentioned before the research done, I presume often by the clients. Is there an opportunity for you to expand into that, or are your clients all very self-sufficient?
I think that the information that clients bring is always really beneficial but it is our job then to understand if they have Altoona, Harrisburg, they have four different pins, they're not all going to be created equal. And so it's understanding, okay, the Walmart does really well in Altoona, but doesn't do as well in Harrisburg. Let's shoot for Altoona first. Let's see available. Okay, we might be priced out of this market based on the calls that we've made but Harrisburg is a good alternative, or maybe they're both killer and we want to attack both of them. And so it really is, they have there's generalized information there, but then actually getting the traffic. I feel like the demographics is essentially what is hit up front, but then the actual trade area analysis, I think sometimes does come onto us. And I like doing that also so that I can understand what we're
Do you
up
have any
against, I guess,
do you have any
competitive.
tools that will say if you put a store here based upon the demographics and the traffic flow and we expect the receipts to be 100,000 a month?
Think that Placer might be offering I don't know if it as theoretical as a new client going there, or if it's just taking the existing units in the market and saying that's how much that this specific unit is doing, and then trying to calculate that out. But I don't know if, at least I don't use it in my day to day that allows me to project how well a store might perform.
Got it. What would be on your wish list for some tool that would make what you do better, faster?
Good question. I think the research aspect of things is what takes a lot of time. I think that zoning is certainly difficult, making sure that we can build what we want to build and fit it in the, sometimes if there's zero setbacks, we can fit on 0.25 acres, but if there's 100-foot setbacks, we can't fit there.
Hmm.
But there's certain markets where we were able to fit an 1,800 square foot oil change on a 100 by 100 site because our entitlements guy went to the city and got 12 variances approved.
Right.
And we had the confidence that that could get done because the neighboring parcel also had a bunch of variances approved. And so I
Okay.
think that if there's some sort of aggregation of variances and acceptances of certain properties, within zoning districts of retail or multifamily, whatever it may be, like that you can put in and say, hey, I have a projected dental space within a retail trade area, but it's allowed in a C1 district, but we're in C2. C1's next door. Is there possibility that this is an approved use based on historical records? And so I
Interesting.
think being able to pull, and most of that is public data. And I know that that's kind of one of the main challenges for AI research is public versus private data. And
Yeah.
so if you're able to pull the zoning minutes, which are, if I'm not mistaken, all public, just because it's, government that's putting those out. Aggregating that data for successful proposals would be great. When it comes to the real estate search side of things, I think that just kind of takes a good eye. And I think that there are certain niches outside of ours where they're looking for certain loan structures, they're looking for certain sizing, and it's very, very specific that they're looking for retail specific, or excuse me, real estate specific. When we're looking for a tenant, I think it just changes the way the search happens a little bit. But when people focus like in Phoenix specifically, you're able to really pull specific site specifics that you're looking for.
Right.
And then I think contact information is a pretty good one. That's a tedious task, but again, people just go too far with it. I wish it could just stop with the data being compiled and then allow us to do the human aspect of things.
Interesting.
And then for the construction side of things, I don't have a ton of involvement on the construction side. And when it comes to maybe construction projects of pricing, could be beneficial. So, if you're looking at an Alabama site versus a Washington site, you can better understand where your budget's going to land, but that data might not be as public.
Here's a sort of wide open question. How do you think land acquisition is going to change in the next 3 or 5 years? Or is it? Will it still be pretty much the same because of that human nature of things? Or
I think that the speed is going to change. I don't know if the process per se is going to change. The process will change in the sense that the tools are getting adjusted and where you can find information. But I think that the big difference is just going to be how quick people are to getting answers. And, it's still going to be human beings owning properties. It's still going to be humans purchasing properties, whether they're massive REITs buying them or individuals buying them. I don't see a world that it's a non-human interaction, but the speed to market, I'll say, will likely change.
I think you're right there. Any other part of your job what's the most fun? If it's the most fun, it's probably the part you're best at, right?
I personally, I love getting deals together. I'm kind of a deal junkie, and I love finding new clients that need help and that we can.
I had assumed because on the land acquisition side, I had assumed that you weren't in the getting new client side. But if I don't know,
I
I
bleed
don't
I
know if
bleed into both. I have the try to find the tenants, and then I also try and find the land for them. And then our team, there's other people on our team that find other tenants, and I help find land for them on that as well, and they'll help me for other clients. It's very much so our company has lofty titles to an extent, but we also are able to really kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit where
that's great.
I want to try and find, or I want to try and connect with this new tenant that's exciting, and I like the concept a lot and it makes all the sense in the world to me. It's like, okay, go for it. And so you do everything.
Do you have reports as to sort of who is building or acquiring land? Is that data
I
available?
don't think there's necessarily an aggregate of that. I know there's one company that is trying to do that. their goal is to connect basically landlords that have existing buildings to clients that are looking within that market. And so
Yep.
it's not, it's more of a placemaker or a date finder almost that, if someone's looking in this market, you're a hot topic. Let's see if we can match,
Uh-huh.
or a matchmaker, I'll say.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just the data of, for our perspective, where we're chasing tenants that are expanding everywhere, not within a single market, that there's not necessarily the platform that says, oh, these people are looking at 25 stores, this is everything. Like, this is kind of the game plan that might be publicly available, but you might have to search for it. I think that is certainly information that would be beneficial.
Interesting. You've given me some good ideas here.
Awesome. I'm glad I made it a beneficial.
These things are mutually beneficial. That's why they work. And I appreciate it. So thank you.
All right, Doug, thanks for the time.